Welcome to Value Plays Only, where Hexing Squelcher just encourages fair magic. Today we have Tyler playing Glarb, Calamity's Augur. This is a Sultai control deck looking to use Glarb's card advantage and its Surveil to police the table. It can win with Thassa's Oracle or an Aetherflux Reservoir Loop. His hand contains an Elves of Deep Shadow, Scheming Symmetry, Finale Devastation, Fellwar Stone, Flusterstorm, and a Breeding Pool. His Luna Mulligan is a Pact of Negation. John is playing Ghave, Guru of Spores. This walking combo pile goes infinite with any 3 cards in the deck. This deck usually wins with an Aristocrat-style loop or an Undying combo. His hand contains a Badgermole Cub, Tyvar Jubilant Brawler, Finale Devastation, Chrome Mox, Fertile Ground, Command Tower, and Shifting Woodland. Dan is playing Etali, Primal Conqueror. This deck wins by casting Etali early and often. He can win with Food Chain or any of his opponent's win conditions. His hand contains a Sticker Goblin, Desperate Ritual, Chrome Mox, Mountain, Wooded Foothills, and a Scalding Tarn. His Luna Mulligan is a Fury. Nick from the Top Deckers is playing Talion, the Kindly Lord. This is a hard control deck. It looks to grind down its opponents and drown them in card advantage, winning with Thassa's Oracle. His hand contains a Thassa's Oracle, Imperial Seal, Limduel's Vault, Drown in the Loch, March Flats, and Takenua, Abandoned Mire. His Luna Mulligan is a Snapback. And with that, let's see some value plays. Tyler starts things off with a Breeding Pool, into play on tap, paying 2 life. He casts a Lotus Petal. He then casts an Elves of Deep Shadow. Tyler decides he wants a friend this game and casts Scheming Symmetry, targeting himself and Nick. The Control Brothers search up a card at the top of their libraries. Tyler then passes the turn. John plays a Command Tower as land for turn. He casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting a Fertile Ground as it enters. He casts a Badgermole Cub. It enters and triggers to Earthbend his Command Tower. Happy with his start, John passes the turn. Dan plays a Wooded Foothills as land for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Taiga. He then passes the turn. Nick plays a Takenua, Abandoned Mire as land for turn. He casts a Soul Ring. Tyler asks if that's what he tutored for, and Nick gives him a knowing look. Nick then passes the turn. Tyler taps and draws. He casts the card he tutored, Soul Ring. The non-control players suddenly feel more behind than ever. Tyler then casts a Fellwar Stone. He passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays a Forest as land for turn. He casts Tyvar, Jubilant Brawler. He activates the -2 loyalty ability of Tyvar to mill Skull Clamp, Agatha Soul Cauldron, and Diabolic Intent, returning nothing to the battlefield. John, amazed that his creature deck has failed him, passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting Desperate Ritual as it enters. He plays a Mountain as land for turn. He then casts Sticker Goblin. It enters and triggers to get a Gelatinous sticker, making 5 mana. He spends 4 on the One Ring. It enters and Dan gains protection from everything. He taps the One Ring to get a counter and draw a card. Dan then passes the turn. Nick untaps and draws. He plays a Marsh Flats as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up an Underground Sea. He taps out to cast his commander, Talion, the Kindly Lord. He names 2 as it enters, and then Nick passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He casts his commander, Glarb, Calamity's Augur. Talion triggers to draw and ping Tyler. Glarb enters, and Tyler looks at the top card with Glarb. Still missing that second land drop, Tyler passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays Shifting Woodland as land for turn. He casts a Bloom Tender. Talion triggers to draw and ping John. John taps his Earthbent Command Tower for white and green. He activates the +1 loyalty ability of Tyvar to untap his Command Tower. He taps it again. He spends his white on a Grand Abolisher. Talion triggers to draw and ping John. He then taps Bloom Tender for 4 mana and casts his commander, Ghave, Guru of Spores. It enters with 5 +1/+1 counters. He spends his floating mana to remove a counter from Ghave and make a 1/1 Saproleg. John then passes the turn. Dan untaps and in his upkeep, the One Ring deals 1 to him. He taps the One Ring to draw 2 cards. Dan plays a Cavern of Souls as land for turn, naming Dinosaur as it enters. He taps out to cast a Sowing Mycospawn. It triggers on cast to search up a Gaia's Cradle to the battlefield. He then passes the turn. Nick untaps and draws. He casts a Mox Diamond. He holds priority and casts an Offer You Can't Refuse, targeting Mox Diamond. Diamond is countered and Nick makes 2 treasures. He then casts an Imperial Seal. It resolves and Nick searches up a card at the top of his library and loses 2 life. He then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He looks at the top card with Glarb. He plays an Ottawa, Soaring City as land for turn off the top of his library. He casts a Demonic Tutor. Talion triggers to draw and ping him for 2. Tyler, looking at the impending Etali, decides to cast Rhystic Study. It resolves and Tyler passes the turn. In his end step, Nick says he doesn't like John's board and something needs to be done about it. After a good amount of debate between Tyler and Nick, they decide Bloom Tender is slightly more problematic than Grand Abolisher. Nick decides to cast Deadly Rollick, targeting Bloom Tender. Rhystic triggers and Tyler draws. In response, John pays a mana to sacrifice Bloom Tender, putting a +1/+1 counter on Ghave. Deadly Rollick then fizzles. The turn then moves to John. John untaps and draws. He plays a Windswept Teeth as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up a Bayou. John really doesn't want to lose Tyvar, but the flying Talion waiting to beat him up means he isn't long for this world anyway. John activates the -2 loyalty ability of Tyvar, killing him. He then mills Ancient Tomb, Ranger Captain of Eos, and Aethersworn Canonist, returning Bloom Tender to the battlefield. John then goes to combat, swinging Ghave at Dan. He takes the damage, and John passes the turn. Dan untaps, and in his upkeep, he takes 2 from the One Ring. He taps the One Ring to draw 3 cards. Dan plays Ancient Tomb as land for turn. He casts his commander, Etali, Primal Conqueror. Rhystic triggers and Tyler draws. Nick goes to respond when Dan points out the Cavernous Holes. Nick says that doesn't matter and casts Dress Down. Rhystic triggers and Tyler draws. Dress Down resolves and Nick draws a card. Etali then enters with no ability and Dan puts Sadness on the stack. Dan passes the turn. In his end step, Dress Down triggers to sacrifice himself. Nick untaps and draws. He casts a Thassa's Oracle. Rhystic triggers and Tyler draws. Tyler, John, and Dan all huddle together now, figuring out what they can do. Priority passes around and Thassa's Oracle resolves and triggers. Nick holds priority and casts Demonic Consultation. Rhystic triggers and he pays. Tyler responds with a Mental Misstep on Consultation. Nick responds with a Mental Misstep of his own. Rhystic triggers and he pays. At this point, Tyler wants to check his options and activates Glarb as Surveil too, putting Mystic Remora and Bloodstained Mire in the grave. Tyler passes priority on Misstep, asking Dan to step up. Dan responds with a Lightning Bolt, targeting Grand Abolisher. Rhystic triggers and Tyler draws. John responds by floating 2 with Command Tower. He then pays 1 to sacrifice a Saproling to put a 1/1 counter on Abolisher. He pays 1 more to sacrifice his Command Tower, putting a 1/1 counter on Abolisher. Earthbend triggers to return Command Tower to the battlefield tapped. Lightning Bolt then deals 3 to Abolisher. Tyler then casts Flusterstorm, with all copies targeting Demonic Consultation. Consultation is countered, and Thassa's Oracle's ability resolves, looking at the top 3, putting all in the bottom of his library. Nick then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. In his draw step, John activates Shifting Woodlands, making it a copy of Aethersworn Canonist, trying to make sure Tyler doesn't pop off and win this turn. Shifting Woodlands' ability then resolves. In his main phase, Tyler plays Bayou as land for turn. He then casts the One Ring. It resolves and Tyler gains protection from everything. He then passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays a Godless Shrine as land for turn. Into play untap, paying 2 life. He taps Bloom Tender for 4 mana. Tyler looks to activate Glarb when John reminds him of Grand Abolisher. He says he can't activate Glarb or the One Ring. John activates Ghave, sacrificing Bloom Tender to put a 1/1 counter on Badgermole Cub. He pays 4 mana to make Shifting Woodlands into a copy of Agatha's Soul Cauldron in his grave. He taps Soul Cauldron to exile Bloom Tender from his grave, putting a counter on Ghave. He can now tap his creatures for 12 additional mana. He spends 9 of it on a Finale of Devastation with X equals 7. Rhystic triggers and John pays. Finale resolves and John searches up a Protean Hulk to the battlefield. He pays 1 to activate Ghave, sacrificing Protean Hulk to put a counter on Grand Abolisher. Protean Hulk triggers and John goes searching. He's looking for a combination of cards that can kill Tyler through protection. Eventually he finds it, searching up a Warren Soul Trader, Elias Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, and Young Wolf. Ellis triggers to gain 2 life. John activates Soul Trader, paying a life to sacrifice Young Wolf to make a treasure. Undying and Ellis trigger to drain each opponent for 1, then Young Wolf returns with a counter. John spends the treasure to remove the counter from Young Wolf and make a Saproling. He can then present a loop of sacrificing Young Wolf to Soul Trader and removing the counter with Ghave to slowly drain out the table with Ellis Ilkor. And with that, John wins the game. Today, we have a 2-for-1 deal. In this game, Tyler is playing Dargo the Shipwrecker and Tymna the Weaver. This deck looks to loop Dargo with Relic Legends or Bergian as sacrifice outlet, or it can win with Underworld Breach. His hand contains an Imperial Seal, Orcish Bowmasters, Delny Streetwise Lookout, Trouble in Pairs, City Brass, and Scalding Tarn. His Luna Mulligan is a Peer into the Abyss. Dan is playing Najeela, the Blade Blossom. This 5-color good stuff pile is packed full of wins. In addition to Najeela's specific combos like Derevi and Grim Hireling, it can win with Thassa's Oracle or Underworld Breach. His hand contains Eldamri's Call, Grim Hireling, Culling Ritual, Lotus Petal, Savine's Reclamation, City of Traders, and Mana Confluence. Matt is playing Winota, Join Our Forces. This deck is packed to the brim with creatures. It looks to stacks out the board while cheating in massive combat threats. His hand contains Hope of Gearper, Ornithopter Paradise, Aven Mind Sensor, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, Pyretic Ritual, and Ancient Tomb. John is playing Pako, Arcane Retriever, and Haldan, Avid Arcanist. This Teamer value list is looking to do its best Etali impression. Pako can generate massive card advantage while pressuring life totals with commander damage. His hand contains Exploration, Tinderwall, Mana Vault, Rolling Earthquake, Flusterstorm, Intuition, and Bloodstained Mire. And with that, let's see some value plays. Tyler starts things off with a Scalding Tarn as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up a Badlands. He casts Imperial Seal. Tyler searches up a card at the top of his library and loses 2 life. He then passes the turn. Dan plays a Verdant Catacombs as land for turn. He pays a life and cracks it, fetching up a Savannah. He casts a Lotus Petal. Dan passes the turn. Matt plays an Ancient Tomb as land for turn. He casts a Hope of Gearper. He casts a Mox Opal. He casts Mox Diamond, discarding Plains as it enters. He casts an Ornithopter Paradise. With the most colorless cards in one turn that Winota has ever seen, Matt passes the turn. John plays a Bloodstained Mire as land for turn. He pays life and cracks it, fetching up a Taiga. He casts a Tinderwall. John passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He plays City Brass, his land for turn. He casts a Soul Ring. He taps out for a Relic of Legends. He then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays a Badlands, his land for turn. He casts his commander, Najeela, the Blade Blossom. Dan passes the turn. Matt untaps and draws. He casts his commander, Winota, Join Our Forces. Matt goes to combat. He swings his Thopters at Tyler. Winota triggers twice. The first trigger puts an Aethersworn Canoness into play, tapped and attacking Dan. The second trigger puts a Sanctum Prelate into play, tapped and attacking Dan. He names 3 as it enters. Everyone takes the damage, and Matt passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He sacrifices Tinderwall for 2 red mana. He spends 1 on a Mana Vault. He then taps out to cast his commander, Pako, Arcane Retriever. John goes to combat, swinging Pako at Dan. Pako triggers to exile Utopia Sprawl, Cavern of Souls, Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, and Gilded Drake, getting 2 +1/+1 counters. Dan takes the damage. John then passes the turn, missing his land drop. Tyler untaps and draws. He plays Command Tower, his land for turn. He casts Delny, Streetwise Lookout. He then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He plays City Traders, his land for turn. He casts a Culling Ritual. With not a lot of blue to be seen, Culling Ritual resolves, destroying most of the board, adding 3 black and 4 green mana. He casts a Grim Hireling. Dan goes to combat. At the start of combat, Tyler flashes in an Orcish Bowmasters. It enters and triggers twice through Delny to ping Grim Hireling for 2, killing it. Dan then swings Najeela at John. It triggers to make a 1/1 warrior, tapped and attacking John. John takes the damage, and Dan passes the turn. Matt untaps and draws. He plays the Spectator Seeding as land for turn. He goes to combat and swings Sanctum Prelate at Dan. Dan takes the damage, and Matt passes the turn. John untaps and draws. He plays a Steam Vents, into play untap, paying 2 life. He goes to combat, swinging Pako at Dan. Pako triggers to exile Legolas's Quick Reflexes, Rite of Flame, Worldly Tutor, and Arcane Signet. Pako gets 4 +1/+1 counters, and Dan takes 9 more commander damage. In his second main phase, John casts Exploration. He then passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. Tyler goes to combat, swinging the Orc Army at John, Bowmaster at Matt, and Delny at Dan. They all take the damage. In his second main phase, Tymna triggers twice to lose 3 life and draw 3 cards 2 times in a row. In his second main phase, Tyler plays Plateau as land for turn. He then passes the turn. Dan untaps and draws. He goes to combat, swinging Najeela at John. Najeela triggers to make a 1/1 warrior, tapped and attacking John. John takes the damage. In his second main phase, Dan plays a Mana Confluence as land for turn. City Traders triggers to sacrifice itself. Dan then passes the turn. In his end step, Matt flashes in an Aven Mind Sensor. In response, Dan casts Eladamri's Call. John steps in here with a Flusterstorm, with all copies on call. Call is countered, and Aven Mind Sensor then resolves. The turn then moves to Matt. Matt untaps and draws. He casts Loyal Apprentice. Matt goes to combat. Loyal Apprentice triggers to make a 1/1 colorless Thopter with haste. Still in the start of combat, Tyler casts Orim's Chant, targeting Matt, and pays the kicker. Chant resolves, preventing Matt from casting spells or attacking this turn. Dejected, Matt has to pass the turn. John untaps and draws. He has no ability to cast Haldan to get access to all of his Pako cards. Worried about Tyler winning, John asks if Matt would be willing to block with Sanctum Prelate to open up John's interaction for the next turn. Matt agrees, and John goes to combat, swinging Pako at Matt. Pako triggers to exile Scalding Tarn, Static Prison, Red Elemental Blast, and Arid Mesa, getting 4 more counters. Matt blocks it with Sanctum Prelate. Finished up, John passes the turn. Tyler untaps and draws. He goes to combat, swinging his Orc Army at John and Delny and Tymna at Dan. They declare no blocks and take the damage. In his second main phase, Tymna triggers twice to lose 4 total life to draw 4 cards. In his second main phase, Tyler casts a Grand Abolisher. Much to everyone's sadness, it resolves. Tyler now goes into the tank thinking how to best assemble his win under Aven. He plays Ancient Tomb as land for turn. He casts a Mayhem Devil. He then casts his commander, Dargo the Shipwrecker, sacrificing Delny, Tymna, and the army as an additional cost. Mayhem triggers 3 times to ping Najeela twice and Aven Mind Sensor once, killing them. Dargo then resolves. Tyler casts Gamble. He searches up a card to hand and randomly discards Exotic Orchard. He casts Mox Opal. He then casts Lion's Eye Diamond. Tyler casts Underworld Breach. He sacrifices Lion's Eye Diamond for 3 red mana, discarding his hand. Mayhem triggers to ping John for 1. He escapes Gamble from his grave, searching up and discarding Altar of Dementia. He escapes Altar from the grave. He sacrifices Dargo to Altar to mill himself for 7. Mayhem pings John for 1. He recasts LED from his grave and sacrifices it for 3 more red. He spends 1 mana to recast Dargo. He taps Dargo for a red through Relic of Legends. He sacrifices it to Altar, milling John for 7. Mayhem triggers to ping John for 1. Tyler now presents a loop of casting Dargo over and over, paying by tapping it through Relic and then sacrificing it to mill out all of his opponents. Each time he does this, Mayhem triggers to ping an opponent for 1. He does this over and over until they're all dead. And with that, Tyler wins the game. So, what did we learn today? Grand Abolisher is pretty good. Turns out 10 mana sorcery speed combos may need some protection to work. If you have any tips for the video, leave them below. Subscribe if you feel like it. Until next time, keep making value plays. What do you get from that?
I get invincibility or whatever.
Yeah.
You lose 2.
I feel like Talion is better than Glarb.
Here, one turn in, I think that's better.
Yeah. Why is Etali drawing more cards than Glarb?
Crazy.
Yeah, he goes Talion, Etali, Glarb.
Yeah.
Crazy. Of card draw commanders. You're looking at Gruul Man like he's got an answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's thinking pretty color.
Treasure for Dino.
Yeah.
Treasure for
Treasure mean mana?
Oh, no one come. Sorry.
Oh, I was just for the. I was trying to
Hello, buddy. Hello.
Flicking cards off the top at him one at a time.
Who put this deck here?
Yeah.
Right?
No.
So how afraid are we of this over here? I've never played against this deck.
This is a control deck too. I'm just.
Or this
He's
one.
looking at me.
This. I was like, dude, I'm doing nothing.
I will pay 1 to sack Bloom Tender to put a counter on Ghave.
I'm gonna look with Glarb.
I mean, so this matters a lot just because he has Talion.
Correct.
So, like,
Oh,
if we have interaction, especially at CMC 2,
That's why I was looking.
I
'cause
don't.
You
I
have
have
one
one
card,
mana.
1 mana, and he has nothing.
there's one mana, yeah.
1 mana. That's why I'm
Yeah,
going for it.
Simeon and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I'm banking on you, don't.
Okay, I mean, you know my entire hand.
I know.
Right.
Okay.
I don't want you to know my whole hand. I want you to know these 2 cards.
And I will cast Lightning Bolt.
You gotta be
Abolisher.
Abolisher.
Grand Abolisher, yeah.
I'll respond to that. Pay 1 and sack my land. It triggers to return.
Pay 1 off what?
I had 2 from this land.
Okay,
I spent
okay.
1 to sack this and 1 to sack this to put a second counter on
I
it.
call you.
I'm good to let Lightning Bolt resolve.
Now that was a heads up play to see that we didn't have like 2 mana up.
Yeah.
Other than
It's
John,
tough. I have a play that
Yeah.
I plan to use to stop you, which is why I don't want to describe it to him.
Okay. I don't know what you need to stop. I'm chilling. I'm just.
You did say I won't show you the rest of my hand. Activate Shifting Woodland. I'll make it a copy of Aether Sworn Canonist. I'm just worried about him doing like Thassa Console and I can't interact. I am gonna definitely be attempting to win. Yeah. Thoughts, friend?
I'll go Glarb.
You can't activate creature abilities.
Oh, that's real sad. Should have done that before. I can't cast any spells. Wow.
Right. Can't cast spells or activate the
I
rain.
totally forgot about Abolisher.
These are them. Eliasil Core, Young Wolf, and Warren Soul Trader. This doesn't get around protection.
Nice.
No, it does. I'm sorry. We're good.
No.
So,
Okay.
I'm just going to loop it over and over, and each of you will lose a life.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and that does do it. I'm sorry that took